Of all people, JD Vance just revealed everything we need to know about Donald Trump's obvious and accelerating cognitive decline. For years now, it's been clear that Trump, who was never particularly smart or emotionally stable to begin with, is slipping even further. This isn't just something to laugh at when he hypocritically shouts "Sleepy Joe" while dozing off himself in the Oval Office. It's a serious national security concern. And now, JD Vance, of all people, has unintentionally exposed just how bad Trump's condition really is, worse than many imagined. We'll break it all down, but before we do, please take a moment to like this video and, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps support our work. Now, to understand how Vance ended up exposing Trump, we have to start with the fact that the mainstream media has finally begun paying attention to this issue. That shift, sparked by new reporting and highlighted by Lawrence O'Donnell's breakdown of a New York Times report on Trump's health, set the stage for this moment, one in which Trump and his allies accidentally told the truth about his condition themselves.
He is in sharp mental and physical decline, and we now have a number for it. 39%. That is the measure of Donald Trump's physical decline since his first time in the White House. 39%. In an article published tonight by the New York Times, Katie Rogers and Dylan Friedman report under the headline, "Shorter Days, Signs of Fatigue, Trump Faces Realities of Aging in Office." The Times has documented the newly abbreviated schedule for the struggling 79-year-old man. Quote, in 2017, the first year of his first term, Mr. Trump's scheduled events started at 10:31 a.m. on average. By contrast, Mr. Trump in his second term has started scheduled events in the afternoon on average at 12:08 p.m. His events end on average at around the same time as they did during the first year of his term, shortly after 5 p.m. The number of Mr. Trump's total official appearances has decreased by 39%. 39% less Donald Trump. That's what we're getting now. Donald Trump was the laziest president we had ever seen in his first term. He is now 39% lazier. And he is now apparently struggling with a 5-hour workday. And of course, none of us have seen him do anything that in any way meets the definition of work during those 5 hours. The Times reports Mr. Trump appeared to doze off during an event in the Oval Office. And so we are now covering the physical decline and fall of Donald Trump. Last night, I mentioned Donald Trump's age a couple of times when I pointed out that you can see the 79-year-old man who gets very little sleep bewildered about how he is losing his grip on the Republican Party. And there are people who are in full-blown dementia in their early 60s. We all age differently, and Donald Trump is aging just fine for someone who should be watching TV all day and playing golf occasionally, but he's aging terribly for a president. But Donald Trump at his best age would have been the stupidest president and most incompetent president in history and the most corrupt. A younger Donald Trump is not a better Donald Trump.
Things have only gotten worse when it comes to Donald Trump's health. And even people in the White House know this right now. And we've been increasingly getting more reports from a mainstream media that will kind of begin to focus on Donald Trump's very clear cognitive decline and the fact that they're talking about how at the RNC he cut his hand and was bleeding because he high-fived Pam Bondi and she was wearing a ring, that Donald Trump's skin is that fragile that he's taking 350 milligrams of aspirin a day to help out his heart to thin his blood. How it's not just his mental state, his cognitive breakdown that's bad, but also what's happening in the space where his heart should be. In fact, a former White House doctor came out and said just that. And it's important context for why Vance is now exposing Trump. And here, as doctors expose what's breaking down everywhere else, something happened. cardiologist keys in on Trump's secret battery of tests. A former cardiologist for former Vice President Dick Cheney delivered a blunt assessment on Donald Trump's bizarre aspirin regime, blasting his explanation as nonsense and suggesting something nefarious must have happened to warrant a team of medical doctors studying the president. So, Donald Trump is randomly being reviewed for all sorts of, and I'm going to put that in quotes actually, he's randomly being reviewed for all sorts of medical ailments. Doctors are just deciding, oh, maybe we should take a test. In fact, Trump is the one calling for these tests. And what's interesting about the fact that Donald Trump is now claiming that he is the one asking for the tests, rather the other way around, is that it's kind of the whole basis for his argument against the fact that he's not in declining health. He just likes taking the test. That's what Donald Trump has said from the beginning now, that he wants to prove that he's so smart that he can pass a cognitive test, but he's taken the lie a little too far. And now it's involving JD Vance. And in that way, JD Vance is exposing Donald Trump's cognitive decline. Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social, "The White House doctors have just reported that I am in perfect health and that I aced," meaning was correct on 100% of the questions asked for the third straight time. My cognitive examination, something which no other president or vice president was willing to take. P.S. I strongly believe that anyone running for vice president or president should be mandatorily forced to take a strong, meaningful, and proven cognitive examination. Our great country cannot be run by stupid or incompetent people. Hold on a second. Donald Trump now says that not only the president, but also the vice president should be required to take a cognitive test. So if Trump truly believes this is about transparency and fitness for office, why hasn't JD Vance come forward to take one? Why hasn't Vance publicly said, "Sure, I'll take a cognitive test"? The silence is telling. Trump, meanwhile, keeps bragging about his own cognitive tests, framing them as proof of his brilliance. But let's be honest, that's not why he's taking them. He's taking them because doctors are worried. Because his behavior, his rambling speeches, his late-night social media meltdowns, and his increasingly erratic decision-making have raised real concerns. This isn't about fun or confidence. It's about monitoring decline. JD Vance, on the other hand, has had routine medical checkups as vice president, a heartbeat away from the presidency. And there's been no mention of a cognitive test. If these tests were truly necessary for everyone in high office, Vance would have taken one already. The fact that he hasn't completely undercuts Trump's argument. So why is Trump suddenly dragging the vice president into this? Because he doesn't want to look like the only one being tested. He wants it to seem normal, voluntary, even though it clearly isn't. As media scrutiny around his health increases, Trump is trying to reframe the narrative, pretending this is about openness rather than medical concern. At the same time, Trump can't stand the growing attention on JD Vance as the future of MAGA. Trump knows he's becoming a lame duck president. He knows midterms are coming, power is slipping, and the coalition is fracturing. Looping Vance into the cognitive test conversation serves two purposes. It shields Trump from scrutiny and subtly reins in a potential successor. But in doing so, Trump gave the whole thing away. JD Vance hasn't taken a cognitive test because he doesn't need one. Trump does. And that alone tells us everything. These tests aren't about transparency or confidence. They're about damage control. That's the truth JD Vance accidentally exposed. Donald Trump isn't volunteering for cognitive tests. He's being watched. And the fact that the President of the United States can upend the economy, threaten wars, or rewrite policy with a 3 a.m. post makes this a real national security issue. This deserves scrutiny. It deserves investigation, and we're going to keep calling it out. If you want to support that, hit subscribe, leave a like, and if you made it to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.